I'll try to get this thing posted tonight. So hello, everyone. My name's Ray Lutz. This is Citizens Oversight conference call. We're just looking at the plan of action for Florida, which is going to be happening tomorrow, 11/18. And I'll show everyone what we've got right now is this list here, and it looks like Brevard or Brevard? How do you say Brevard?
Brevard.
Oh, Brevard. Okay, Brevard County is on still, looks like. Broward canceled. Citrus, that one looks like it's still on. Duval, I didn't have the time for that. I think there's somebody up there that's going to be doing that, though.
I'm sorry, Ray. Brevard is canceled.
Brevard is canceled.
Yes.
We'll go back and fix that then. Glad you're following up on all this. We've got Margaret Carlock, who's been doing a great job. All right, let me put canceled in for Brevard. This is the problem here. We don't get very many audits going on, and the recounts are hardly an audit. I was able to, okay, let's just go through this really quick and make sure we got them all, Margaret. Brevard canceled, Broward canceled, Citrus on, Hillsborough on, Lee canceled, Marion on, Miami-Dade canceled, Orange, so far we have information on these on, Palm Beach on, Pasco on, Pinellas canceled, Polk canceled, Sarasota on, Seminole on, and Volusia on.
That's what I have.
Okay, so I'll save that then. Okay, so again, we're talking about, hi, Sally.
Hi.
What's your last name, Sally? Do I know you already?
Castleman, Election Defense Alliance.
Oh, cool.
Emily Levy forwarded me this.
Perfect. Okay, so
Yep.
we're going over what we're trying to do for you and everyone else that's going to watch the recording is we have this page here that I'm looking at, which is on the Cops Wiki site. It's called Election Oversight Florida 2016 November. Okay, and it's our plan to try to look at the audits and the recounts as much as we can. The recounts not as important because we really don't find out any. We don't really, the way they do the recounts, they don't ever actually recount anything. They actually only look at the overvotes and undervotes.
Are we talking only about Florida?
At this time, yeah, because
Okay.
because Florida has their audits tomorrow, and I wanted to make sure that everybody who could do it knew what to do tomorrow. It's
Great.
really not that much, but we have this list of the counties that are our targets.
Great.
And the problem is that if they do any kind of a recount, what they call a recount, then they don't do the audit. They cancel the audit. And we'll get into that, what the difference is in a second. But this list here, I just went over. We're just getting the word that since they're doing the recount, a lot of them are audits. I'm sorry, a lot of the audits were canceled. People should check either this list or better the website of wherever they're planning to go to make sure it's going on.
May I just ask who asked for the recount?
It's automatic.
Great.
So in this state,
Great.
if it's less than 0.5%,
0.5%. Right. Got it.
then they do all they do is a rerun through the machine. And if it's less than 0.25%, then they look at the undervotes and overvotes by hand.
Okay.
But they never actually count anything. And so now, mainly what we want people to do is, I wanted to go over that. So I forgot to do this in our last meeting. This is a summary of what I was trying to provide, called the random draw oversight procedure for people that are looking at their computer, you should be able to see this because I'm sharing my desktop. Essentially, this is where in Florida they're choosing a random race, and that is the most critical aspect because they only choose one race. So if they don't choose that randomly, they can very easily avoid a race that they fixed.
Right.
So we want to make sure that that is absolutely clean how they're choosing that. What I've seen before, like in Broward County, the video that we have that was taken for Broward, they used just the pieces of paper in the hat, and it looked very cheesy how the guy seemed to hold one off to the side and not let them choose it, this sort of thing. It's very easy to do sleight of hand and with that kind of a selection method. So we want to make sure that they use dice or something else to choose it. And then they go through the process of hand tallying 1% of the precincts for that one race, if they ever get to it.
And if I could say something, Ray, on that, and first I want to say, hi, Sally.
Hi, John.
Me and Sally go back a long ways in this movement, about 12, 13 years. And Ray, if I could say, I have a video that I can put up, and I'll show you how a fraudulent hand count is done when they do the selection, just like you said. Because in 2010, me and Jim March walked out of a hand count and turned around and sued them in Maricopa County because they had not committed the results publicly yet, and they wanted to do the hand count, and the law was pretty specific on how it was supposed to be done. And sadly, that's still being done in Arizona in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I was in Ohio in 2004, and I was assigned to Cuyahoga County, and it wasn't random. We walked into the room, and they'd already been chosen, and I believe they'd already been run through the machines. Are John and I the only ones on the Zoom?
No, we have Suzanne Burton and Margaret Carlock. Not everybody shows up if they're muted on here.
Oh, okay.
And
Just wondered.
no.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, and so
Hello. Hi.
also
Hi.
a lot of people watch these later, and so they sometimes go too long. I want to make this one as short as possible and still cover everything, so that people will be able to watch it. But basically, this oversight procedure is based on what we've encountered going through it a number of times, especially for San Diego and in California. But in Florida, it's abbreviated somewhat. The public notice is something that we've been having somewhat of a trouble with here in Florida because their public notices changes very, very rapidly. In Miami-Dade last time, they said, okay, it'll be, like Monday or Tuesday of the week after the election. And then when we got to that time and we had some volunteers ready to go in, they said, we forgot to tell you it was on Saturday. We already did it. So it meant that we couldn't get there at all. So the first step is to get this public notice and see if they're doing it right. In California, we have to get this, what I'm calling the snapshot file, which is the intermediate results, so that it can be compared with the results of the audit itself. In Florida, this is not an issue because they actually certified their elections ahead of time and then do the audit. So the final results are usable, but they have to be broken down by precinct so that they can be compared with what they're doing. And then, so I said here in Florida, exactly what I just said. The snapshot file, it's not an issue. You don't have to work on that. And then observing the random draw, and essentially this is what we want people to video record. And we've had no trouble whatsoever in Florida doing this. They are one state that absolutely does not have a problem with people recording what they're doing with regard to the manual tally, nor even the hand counting that I've seen. And some are better than others that way. And I'll show you a picture of what I just saw. But essentially what we want to start to learn is how they're doing this and make sure that there can be no sleight of hand in terms of selecting which race it is mainly and then which precincts.
Hello? Hello, Ray?
Yeah.
This is Diane. How are you?
Oh, hi, Diane. Diane Fowler?
Hi. Yeah, Padro, right. Yeah, I got in a little bit late. I had to install Zoom and I got home late. So, but I
Okay.
had a question
Okay.
before you go forward.
Okay, so sure, go ahead. This is Diane Fowler from Michigan. Go ahead, Diane.
No, it's Diane Padro from Florida, from Broward County.
Sorry, I stand corrected. I didn't hear what you said. All right.
Okay.
From Florida.
Okay. About the manual audit, as opposed to a recount. Now in Broward County, they're having a recount, so that negates that renders the audit unnecessary, correct?
Actually, no, but they don't do it. I mean, as far as we're concerned, it's not a replacement for the audit, but they, in their statute.
Well, they seem to think it is.
No. In their statute, it does say they don't have to do the audit if they do a recount. They're right about that. But what I'm saying is that the functionality of a recount does not replace the functionality of what we're looking for in the audit. And I'll try to explain that in a second. Okay. Now, you're in Broward County. You're not going to be able to watch the audit or video record the audit because it's canceled. So I'm
right.
If you want to do something, I'm here in Florida. I'm going to go up to Palm Beach. Okay. They're still doing the audit. And so you can see that one, or you can just try to go in and watch a little bit of the recount. The recount does not actually, they don't actually recount anything by hand and compare it with the ballots. It goes just only, it's a
machine recount, right?
Yes, and I'll show you that in a second. So,
okay.
And I took a really good video of that in Pinellas County. Okay, so and I have a couple of things to report about what we're thinking about doing there, but essentially, we're out of luck with these ones that are canceled. I don't know if you're on your computer, but we have the list here, and we have Brevard, Broward, Lee, Miami-Dade, Pinellas, Polk. All of those have been canceled due to recounts.
Right.
Okay. Now, if people do get to go into the audit, the main thing that we want to have you do is video record the random selection process of the race.
Right. That's what I did after the primaries.
Oh, that
the
was
random selection and the audit in Broward County.
Okay, so what I saw in Broward County from your video was extremely helpful, because this whole thing that they were doing in Broward County of putting the little slips of paper in the hat, that's extremely...
Yes. Oh, that's ridiculous.
I know, and the way the guy did it, actually, he looked like he was trying to fix he actually, fooled around with them a whole bunch. It was strange. And then it was very hard. He actually did not show everyone that all the slips of paper were in there for every race. I didn't see them show that. Maybe they did, but I didn't see the video.
I didn't catch that.
So it's if you put slips of paper in a hat, the sort of the old opportunity drawing, or what do they usually call them? Can't think of the word now, but it's, they do it at church functions and stuff where you draw out the coupon and you get some prize. Raffle, that's it. Yeah, they use the raffle method. Of course, if it's just a raffle, no one much cares. But in this case, we have to really be watching that every race is represented in the bin, and then it's pulled out in a fair manner. So that was something that I noticed in Broward, and I was hoping to be able to see that again. But I'm going to be going. I'm here, so I want to be witnessing something And so I'm hoping that, Palm Beach is going to be the place to go. Right now, I'm in Fort Lauderdale at the moment. So that is, yeah. And so if you're here, maybe we can even meet for lunch or something. But let's get back to basically that is all we have to do for monitoring the audits that we do have in Florida, which are very, very limited. Now I've got a picture here that because I was in Miami-Dade today. So what I did was I drove down here. From what I heard, Miami-Dade was having their audit tomorrow. And I said, well, I'm just going to go out to the election office to make sure I know where it is. I got in there and I said, is this the place where they're doing the audit process tomorrow? And she says, well, they're already doing it. So I go in, and indeed they're doing a recount. What they have here in this picture are, Diane, are you watching your computer or just on the phone?
No, I'm on my phone.
Okay, no worries. So what we have here for the people that can see it, and you can listen to the recording later, they have 2 rooms, and I can kind of scroll by here, going to the next picture. This is the other side of the room. You can see these units here are the scanners, apparently. I'm not really familiar with what they are, but they're pretty sure those are the scanners. And then here's looking through the window. These people sitting on the other side of the window at the table are the people looking for any additional marks for the undervotes and looking to see if the overvotes are legitimate, if there are any. So what they do in the recount, they take the ballots attributable to that race, run them back through the scanners again, let the scanners tell them which ones have the overvotes or undervotes, set those aside, and then don't ever count the rest of them. Then look over the ones with the overvotes and undervotes and see if there's any additional markings. And I did take a video of them.
What I can't understand that. Why is not a recount done by hand? I mean, why do you depend on machines? After we see why do they, I mean, what's the point of going through a recount with the same machines that counted the first time?
Because they passed those laws after 2000 because that's what they wanted. They didn't want hand recounts anymore.
Right.
It was their way of getting back at us.
Right.
They outlawed it.
So they have in the audit process, so they do hand count those. They do.
Yeah, I saw that and I recorded that.
Yeah. And so it's actually not too bad what they're doing, except that it's the most minimal audit you could possibly do. It's only one random race.
Absolutely.
So it's not like they're really going overboard here. I know they say, oh, you can trust our election system, it's bulletproof. Oh, really? Well, why are they doing such crappy audits? Well, anyway.
Right. Is it also possible to check that every race is really in that random pile of what they're selecting from?
Well, that's the point, is that when they choose the random race, what we want to see is maybe a list of all the races and a number by each one, that then they roll the dice, like the first one is a 1-1, then a 1-2, a 1-3, all the way down. If they had 36 races, you can just use conventional dice, roll them, and pick the race. I mean, that way there's no question that all the races are there. They're shown on a piece of paper. Okay.
Right, but is it clear that we get to see that?
Well, if it was that type of a method for drawing it, I think it was in one of the videos I saw, they used poker chips, and they put a number on each poker chip, and they had people pull the poker chips out of a bin, and then but you had to go through all of the races, and they had to say, okay, here's this poker chip, I'm putting it in. Here's the next one I'm putting in. So it's a lot of work to demonstrate that they're all in there. If they go through that, yes, then I guess it's okay to use it. With dice, you don't have to demonstrate that the dice have 6 sides or 10 sides, depending on what you use. You just look at them and you can see that if they're fair dice. Some of the selection, like the activists up in LA, asked them to be making it completely random so that there's all equal probabilities. And so now they're using the actual raffle type method, you know, with the big rotating thing with a whole bunch of coupons in there. They have something like 4,000 precincts, so they got to put 4,000 coupons in there. Really, it's very hard to know that they're all represented. And so that's why even though I know activists probably have struggled to get them to do it that way, it's really not a good way to do it because it's too hard to know if they're all in there.
Ray, if I could jump in here real quick, you hear me?
Yes.
Is that it's so, you know, Florida used to have an easy hand count system back in 2004. When they dumped all the DREs, they went to paper. And then, of course, being Florida and Arizona have a lot in common, developers, and we sold desert, and they sold swampland, same people basically. They went ahead and they copied Arizona's system, okay? And that's where these random crazy hand counts, and I figured them out a long time ago, like I was saying earlier, is that if you do not have the precinct results, it's easier to de-rig than it was to rig. They can walk in the back room and then turn those results back to the normal, what it was before. And so that is a weakness, that you have to have the precinct results in front of you that are publicly committed before they do the drawing.
Yeah. So, with the audit, if they're doing an audit, then we have to make sure that the most important thing is the random selection of the race. It needs to be randomized, because then we're adding risk to anybody who wants to try to fix the race through actual central tabulator hacking. We could potentially catch them. I mean, if we get a random selection of the race, we could maybe pick eventually one of those big races instead of just a grammar school supervisor or something. I mean, they get all of the races, so we'll get one that's not important. So I just want to contrast, though, with this recount situation that you see in the picture here. If you have your video on, all they do is they rescan the ballots if it's less than, if it's closer than 0.5%, but if the margin is greater than 0.25%, all they do is run them back through the scanners. That's it. And see if it still matches. Of course, it could have the same error, the same fix the second time around.
Exactly. I don't see the point of that.
Well, it isn't really any point at all. When you get to the 0.25%, what I understand is that's when they go through this process that you see in the picture, where they're going to be looking at the undervotes and overvotes. Now, and here in this in this county, you can actually walk up right up to the window. I had my camera right there, and I was watching the ballots as they came out. Many of the ballots, excuse me, were just almost completely blank, and that they only would vote for the president, right? And so these other down races don't have any votes at all. And they had a few of them that were partially colored in, just like a half of it, and it wasn't detected before, and it should have been a vote. But those are going to be basically offsetting, because people will generally make that mistake equally, voting for each one of them. So they usually don't really diverge. It's really not something that is, it's important that when these close races to look for it. My point is that this process does not replace the audit process and actually hand counting ballots to compare it with the central tabulator to catch these central tabulator hacks. So it really isn't sufficient, and the audit process that they have in this state is not as good as the one that they're using in Arizona, because isn't it right, John, that in Arizona they also are required to use some of the more important races, right? Isn't it? If it's
absolutely, Ray. It's mandatory at a presidential election is to have the presidential race. One, if it's a senatorial, that has to be picked, and then they pick one in the House, and they go into the Arizona Senate, Arizona House. But there's nothing below that. They will not check a county race, which is very controversial in our state, sheriff, or things like that. It's only those.
They never do anything below at all.
Nothing, nothing. And that's where on the county level, a lot of mischief is done.
Okay, so that should be, if they could just choose one random race amongst the rest of them, that would solve that one. And that there would be a threat of catching them, and it might catch them once in a while.
Yeah, but the problem we have in Arizona is that 15% of our vote is at a precinct now, and they'll check 2% across the state. In Pima, they'll do 4 because they had me falsely arrested when I caught them. And a penalty, they had to go to 4. But the vote by mail in Arizona, it's worthlessly checked. Terrible.
Yeah. Okay, so I did go to, let's see, I wanted to, no, not that.
It's 11 o'clock on Tuesday.
It was, let's see, is this here? Let's see what we got. I uploaded 2 citizens oversight. Can I see the, I don't want that. I want the, oh, sorry. Well, let's just go there directly. Okay, so this was essentially a discussion in Pinellas County.
Florida does have audits. We go through focusing on audits.
And I wanted to get up in here. Okay. Now they have this type of machine.
That's an ES850 right there.
Yeah, this has the capability of making images. And I asked the fellow there.
I said I'm on a conference call.
Okay. So who's? Okay, so try to mute your phone, someone there. Okay. And this is what I was asking him about, the fact that they can make ballot images in this county, but they choose not to. So there's apparently a switch. Do you know about this, John? Is there a way to use this machine and not make ballot images?
Well, let's just say this. I've become an expert on this machine. It has to create an image because that's what the machine counts. There is a switch, and it's a destruction switch that happens at the end of the day. You know, when it's done at the end of the day and they turn it off, I guess these images go into memory and it gets dumped. And it was purposely built in order to do this. We just won a court case, proving that those ballot images is what the machine counts. And our judge ruled this way very simply, is that if I gave you my ballot, you made a photocopy of the ballot, and you then use the photocopy, you must preserve the images. And I think I was very successful in Arizona to stop 11 counties from destroying and making sure that switch was on, because those are a public record.
Okay.
The originals are better for us.
That's a really important point. So we should be able to, again, here, ask them to keep the switch on, keep the images so that we can use them. Now, one of the...
In Arizona, it's a class 6 felony, the way that we invoked it, if they destroy the images now.
Okay. That's interesting. I talked to this fellow, Mike Fox, who has been helpful in Florida to, get people lined up to help with the audit oversight. And he lives in Pinellas County. He wants to see, and maybe you can reflect on this, John. He wants to perhaps, so they say that they didn't keep the ballot images, they don't have them. And he wants to go in and ask them to rescan the ballots and create images, at least for some of them, so that we could look at them. Have you had any success on doing that?
Well, hey, I would file a TRO, and then I would let the judge know that they destroyed critical evidence and what the machine counted. The machine does not count the original ballot. it counts the machine ballot, and that should be a public record. Now, every state has different laws. I know in Arizona, it's a big win for us. I don't know what Florida's laws are. And but if it was in Arizona, I am planning anybody who destroys, I'm going to sue in Arizona. That's
Okay.
our position.
Okay, so that,
And make them make the images to give to us as a remedy.
uh-huh. Have you gotten the images yet?
No, I'm going to be hopefully in court in the next 10 days that we go in for the second part, which would actually give us the images. The first part of the case, I worked hard to make sure that they were protected and did not want to spend the money with lawyers on trying to get them at that point, because I wanted to keep the case simple and first preserve them, then the next was to get them. It's a double hitter.
Okay, so, okay, so we could go back and I'm pretty sure they don't have them. He talked about the fact that they have a local network from those machines into their central tabulator machine, and they also use a sneaker net, you know, kind of a thumb drive that they insert, and they also use that sort of as a backup, but he says they delete those every time. So they actually put it onto a thumb drive, and then they delete that. Now, are the images contained within the DS-850 itself?
Yes, they are, and they certainly are. And you know, you have to ask yourself, why are they destroying these things? Okay, and
Well, why aren't they? I mean,
they're protecting the right to cheat in the future, if not now or in the future.
that's what I was asking the guy. You know, why aren't you turning it on to create the images? It's at least as good as it's a good idea as a backup in case all the ballots are destroyed in a hurricane or something. You have a way to do
But
it.
again, it's the images is what the machine counts. It does not count the ballots. It counts the images.
Right. Well, that's the case in every kind of ballot counting. You only can count what you can see.
Well, yeah, no, it actually copies an image that you could lay the copy. It's like a photocopy, okay?
Sure.
And in the old system, it used the mark sensor, and there was no image, so it didn't have a record, okay?
Yeah.
That's where the technology has bent to our side, which is incredibly good. That machine also has the capacity, if they so choose, is to put an ink cartridge in it and then put that same number that's on the image on the ballot. And now you got a great audit system, and then it produces a fabulous document called the cast vote record,
Right.
which is an Excel. It's extremely great for auditing
Yeah.
with a hyperlink to the ballot image.
Right. So that's I do agree with you that we're now, if we can, and you've broken the ground here on pursuing these ballot images. It's something I've wanted for years in order to, because it is a solution to stopping this hacking that we might be seeing, even though we haven't been able to pin them down. It does appear that weird things are happening. So essentially, we have. Let me go back. I just want to close out this issue with the. We have a few counties in Florida that we're going to be pursuing tomorrow. Other areas in, for example, California, have already gone through the selection process and are currently doing the hand tallying in most cases. We found two issues that we're going to be pursuing in California right away, and that is in Sacramento, they decided not to use any type of random selection process and instead select the precincts according to whatever they wanted, what would be easiest for them. And in Fresno, they chose them randomly, but 2 months ahead of time, and let everybody know what they were. So that eliminates the main reason for having them, which is to make sure that that they're surprised and they don't know which ones are being chosen for for the audit.
This is Mimi Kennedy. Can anybody hear me? Because I have an update on that Fresno situation.
Oh, good.
Can you hear
I
me?
didn't know you were on the line. Hi, Mimi.
I just got on the call. Hi, I've been listening.
Oh, good.
November 10th, Brandy Orth redid the random selection. I am not sure how she did it, whether she did a computer generation or not, but she was at the Secretary of State's office, as I understand it, due to activist intervention, including mine, did intervene, and Brandy did redo the random selection. Now, today, Judy Hess and another observer went there to watch the manual audit, and it was done 40 feet away in a corner of a room where they could not get to and were not allowed to go. So Brandy Orth is still exhibiting defiance of the spirit of public observation in election code, if not the strict letter. I mean, the public was observing from 40 feet away. That's the update, though, and
Okay,
that is good news. The Secretary of State intervened with that particular registrar, but it was all very not transparent. It was an email to the Secretary of State's office, and Carlos Montes of that office got back and said, oh, yes, I'll look into it. And next thing I know, Brandy Orth was saying she would redo it. So I don't know how it happened or what was invoked in order to make her redo it. But
well, that would be probably important to get. Maybe the people that are working on Fresno can ask them for the emails that went back and forth to the Secretary of State, because those should be accessible by public records.
Right. Right. That's a good idea. Plus, I would like to call Carlos Montes. I'm still in communication with them now about the violation of the spirit of the law of public observation by having it be 40 feet away and telling the observers they couldn't get any closer to the actual manual recount, which is now underway.
Okay, so essentially, we were thinking about, well, the main thing that came up was we had an observer in Sacramento, Justin LeBlanc. Let me see if Justin is on the call right now, because not everybody has a video. I don't see him in the list. Okay, so Justin did a good job of going in, and actually they eventually kicked him out and made him delete pictures off of his camera. When he was in there trying to observe the random selection process, they would not let him video record it nor take any pictures, and they proceeded to not use any random selection method at all, but simply choose the precincts that they wanted. And she explained that they didn't want to choose the precincts that would be too hard to recount. So we
Holy cow.
So we were, I was talking to my attorney, Alan, that's been helping me with the lawsuit against Michael Vu, and he said he'd be happy to help pursue that on a legal basis. And we thought that if Fresno was continuing to do what they had been doing, that it was a similar thing about the random selection, how to do it, and that maybe we'd combine those. But now Fresno is off the table, then maybe it's not worth combining. But I think that we do want to go ahead and force this issue about Sacramento, because that's just an egregious violation, and it's very, very clear it has to be a random process, and they're not doing it.
I agree. That is a violation of election code. Absolutely. And my question to Carlos Montes today is, what's the chain of account, the chain of command when there's a violation of election code? Is it to the Attorney General we go for enforcement, or the Secretary of State? And I think it's the Secretary of State, because we've been told before that the Attorney General would not slap the hand of a registrar. In fact, would be called upon evidently to defend a registrar if the citizens organized to do a legal suit of some kind. So it's quite a dilemma in terms of what the chain of command is for enforcement of election code. But that is a clear violation. So I think the Secretary of State is now being responsive to those violations, and it's a good time to press. And I will send you
Carlos Montez's email address if you like. I got it through my own assemblyman, Audrey Nazarian, who's on the election committee.
Yeah, well, this registrar in Sacramento is Jill Levine, and you know, you'd think she's right there by the Secretary of State. She'd just be the cleanest shop in the state, but she's actually the dirtiest shop in the state after Michael Vu, maybe.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's really over the top. At least Vu tries to, and he has changed his methodology for choosing the random races, because we told him that it was not statistically valid the way he was doing it, because he would stop at the hundreds digit and not choose the thousands at all if it was over you know, the number. So if it was like 1522 and the number was 522, they would not choose the thousands and say, well, it has to be a 0. And what that does is it makes it more probable that you get those lower values because the other higher range is not split in half. But in any case, it's actually the other way around from what I said. But they're not exact. From my standpoint, it's not a big deal, because what they're doing in San Diego is leaving out a massive number of ballots, and so their probability is 0. I'd rather have, even if it's not equal, some probability for all of them rather than 0. And so, and now Vu has broken it up into 2 parts. He's doing a first draw just for the polls ballots, and a second draw which happened on the 15th. And we did get a video of that, but it hasn't been provided yet to me or anyone, and so I haven't seen it. But that is only for the vote by mail ballots that have been processed as of the 15th, and they're not all done. So he's somewhat in better compliance, but not all the way.
If I may intervene, that was the last issue that Judy has brought up in Fresno as of today, that she was told, yes, the absentee ballots are going to be included in this manual audit. However, she saw on the board that the status of the absentee count was extracting, which seems to be taking the ballot cards out of the envelopes that have now all been processed for signature match and you know, eligibility, voting eligibility. So if they're just now being extracted, at what point do they find their way into the 1%? She's asking that question. I am not saying that it's a violation. I just don't know the answer. But you are already saying that you're learning that VU hasn't yet entirely counted all the absentee ballots and yet is going ahead with the 1%, but you're saying it's a second step process. He will presumably get 1% of the absentee ballots into the manual recount, the manual audit.
It doesn't look like he's planning to get them all in. He's choosing. Okay, he's also doing it in batch mode, and so you know they do the polls ballots in a precinct by precinct selection. They choose 1% of the precincts. Then for the vote by mail ballots, they can do it by batches, and they choose 1% of the batches that they processed so far. And so he's processing more than he did before, which I asked him to do that. I said, at least wait a little bit so you get more vote by mail ballots in. I mean, this is before I realized that it was a law that he had to include all of them, or at least that's what we argue. And so he's been trying to tell me that they don't have to include all of them. I was kind of buying into his line of crap until this year when they were excluding so many that and also this year we have not only just the provisionals, but all the write-ins are being delayed till the end, and they're not going to be no tally either. I think those ballots get excluded from the processing, the line of process that they have. So that may be a significant number. What I wanted to try to get is a report of all of the batches ahead of time, so that we had all the batches, all the votes in each batch, race by race by race, and then be able to add those up and get the totals and be able to compare that with what they say they've gotten so far. So we know this is actually reflecting everything that we've got. And then when they randomly choose the 1% of those batches, then they can't fudge the numbers. All we get right now are only the report of the ones that have been chosen after they've chosen them. So they choose them, the batch numbers, they give the list to the IT guy. He goes back into the, the dark hidden room, the secure room, and comes out with a report. He's the same guy that goes out and gets the ballots. And so if that guy is compromised at all, then, all bets are off. Anything could happen.
IT is where you'd compromise something if you were going to compromise something. That's something I learned about California some time ago. But the process is lousy. Yeah.
So if we could get and this is why I wanted to try to get an understanding of, they say it's too hard to make a report of all of the batches. And they say the reason is because they have to delete, like if you want batch 100, you have to delete batches 1 through 99 and batches 101 through, the end 1300, and then you get one batch report. Then you go to the next one and you have to do the same thing for whatever that batch is. And they say that's just too hard for all the batches.
Have you, as reference, gone back to the lawsuit that was done by CFOS, by Paul Lato in 2006 on the Busby-Bilbrey race, also San Diego, I believe? They found, I am invoking it because they found absentee ballots cast to like 106% turnout of absentee voters in, certain precincts. And I don't know how they would have known that unless they managed at that point to connect the absentee ballot envelopes to the correct precincts. And I really am raising this question. Their lawsuit, I think I still have a copy of it, or Paul Lato is probably around to be able to phone and ask him. In Los Angeles, we demanded, and now this happens. I think that the absentee ballots become part of the precinct roster of votes cast for the purposes of the 1% manual tally. I can't swear to that, but Connie McCormick.
I don't think that's right, Mimi, because I went up to LA and I talked to them a couple weeks ago when I went up there, I guess a week ago. And so I did review what they do with the vote by mail ballots and the provisionals and stuff.
Okay.
And they do not include any vote by mails or provisionals after election night results and the 1% manual tally. They don't.
They do not at this point.
Do not.
All right. So that has not been adjudicated, even though we argued that the election code says you must. I just think the capacity in LA is there because we bought some big machine Connie McCormick complained about activists having made her spend money on, so that all the absentee returned ballots could be put into the proper precinct.
Well, no, they are organized by precinct, and the vote by mail ballots are organized by precinct in LA. They do sort them by precinct, and they keep them that way. But they do not attempt to do any tallying of anything after election night. So and it is a logistical question up there. However, basically tallying any one race only takes, X amount of days, like 1 day at the most, or 2 days if it's really hard. Any one precinct, I should say. And so basically, if you had enough people, that's all it would take. If you had a big enough room and enough people, it would take, whatever it takes, the longest period of time to do one of them. Because there's nothing related. They don't have to wait for one to do the other, nothing like that. You can do them all in parallel. And the idea that it takes them all months to do them just doesn't make any sense unless they just have run out of space to put people. I'm going to be going up to as soon as I get back from Florida, I'm going to go back to LA and see exactly what they're doing at their manual tally process to see, you know, because we analyzed the process in San Diego. They came out with a report in our loss. Well, it was actually the end of the report that they produced, the results and the variances and so forth of the manual tally report. On that report, they say when they started and stopped each one of the tallying of each precinct and or whatever they were tallying, start and stop times, date and time. I made a chart of that, and it had all of these gaps in it where they weren't doing anything apparently, but I think they did something and they didn't report on what they were doing because they did it and then undid it. They actually went into the batches with 40 people for a week and manually pulled out the ballots so that they would match the manual tally computer report. We don't know what they were doing. A week, 40 people fiddling around with the ballots. It's a mess.
Wow.
So, you know, what we want to get is no manipulation of the ballots before they go into the manual tally process. They should be in pristine sealed boxes, be pulled out, and then they have to tally that against a computer report that was made for that box. Done. There shouldn't be any other. What they did was they used the computer report to go into the batches to find the ballots that were supposed to be attributed to that precinct. And they had to search through the batches to find them, but they're using a computer report. If you, for example, if you had a misfeed or you didn't even scan a box, it wouldn't be included in the computer report. So you'd never find it. You can't do it that way. That's stupid. It's like a circular, you know, definition. You can't have a recursive definition. Well, enough of that.
John, break you. I got to jump in here. It proves the system was built to cheat. The system is built around procedures. Everybody must follow procedures. But it's what's the big failure, it's not evidentiary-based procedures.
Oh, they don't have
around things.
Yeah, what they don't have is in their thinking process of their procedures, they do not have a mechanism so that citizens can actually provide oversight in a structured manner. Oh, they say, yeah, you come on in and you can see whatever you want, but you can't see anything I mean, it looks great, theater, them tallying the ballots, you know, and then everyone goes, ooh, you're doing a good job. But they're not realizing that in order to find out what you're doing, you have to have a computer report up front that then you can compare with the result as an oversight, a citizen doing the oversight. Otherwise, you're not doing your job enough. You have to do more than just watching them tally. And this is something that no one was really doing in a structured manner. And that's why when we finally did that, that's when we figured out that San Diego was cheating. They weren't doing them all.
Same
all
thing
right.
in Arizona.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do then is we're going to move forward on just the Sacramento thing, because it sounds like, unless Mimi, do you think that, yeah, I mean, it sounds like still a loose end because Fresno was told to do it right. Are they going to do it right from now on, or is it something we have to ask them to do every single election?
That is what's not clear because Alex Padilla's office is not transparent. But I told them I would be addressing the Progressive Caucus at the executive board meeting of the Democratic Party in San Diego on Saturday night, and I would be telling about the state of the chain of command as I know it and has been told by Padilla's office so far. To answer your question, Fresno did it correctly. They had a random selection November 10th instead of using the one they had done 2 months before. So that was done correctly. Now
did they provide the 5-day? Did they provide the 5-day written notice on their website or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they did, because that's when we started to complain when Judy Hess went in and went before the election when are you going to do the random selection, was told once again, we did it in August. And then she started this email chain of complaint that finally ended up in Alex Padilla's office with this fellow, Carlos Montes, who has said, as of yesterday, I believe, or maybe early this morning, I got this thing saying it's been taken care of. She did it right. November 10th was when they redid the random selection. Now, he did not share with anyone how that turnaround was achieved. Therefore, we have no knowledge of what the lever might be that we would put our hands on again should we find this situation in any of California's counties and be lucky enough to find it, because we have to be a watchdog of our registrars for months before any given election to catch that this is going on and complain about it, presumably complain to the Secretary of State. But again, in this redress and correction, at no time was I really told, thank you, this is who you talk to, and from now on, please go. None of that. This was just, it's been taken care of. She redid it. So I don't find it a very law-based outcome. I find it to be very personality-based and situational, and I still don't know what the legal chain of command and redress should be, although this one worked through my assembly member.
Yeah, well, this is what I encountered at the Secretary of State. I called up there and I said, they have a like voter fraud division, right? And they said, here's where
voter fraud.
Yeah, here's where you call to report, you know, people that are trying to commit voter fraud.
Ridiculous, yes.
They have a whole like department or whatever phone number for that emergency line. And then I said, well, what about election fraud? Where do I call for that? And he goes, what do you mean election fraud? I mean the election, you know, the election official, you know, not following the law. Who do I call for that? Oh, that doesn't ever happen. We don't have that kind of thing, you know.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah.
So denial, not a reality. So now we have our work cut out for us, but that is not so much a legal matter, is it?
It's completely, Mimi, it's completely not in their mindset. They have no, they can't even formulate like the question about this. They've so far
Well,
from.
we've got their attention now, so we're going to put it in their mindset. We do have a big public forum in San Diego at that executive board meeting within the Democratic Party. Alex Padilla is a Democrat. There can be some pressure coming out of that, and I believe it is a media question or an op-ed question that I certainly would like to address.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I know Mike Thaler, who's been the chair of the Progressive Caucus, I think they want to do something, some sort of takeover of the Democratic Party, or you know, trying to move them over to the left instead of where they're positioned right now. But this whole thing with election integrity should be. I gotta say that I'm out here in Florida, and I'm watching. There we go. So my hotel, you know, cut me off because I think I had been on for an hour or something like that. That's all I can think of. So basically, I don't know. I was in the middle of my sentence saying that we were talking about the Democratic Party. What is that? The Central Committee meeting, Mimi, that you were talking about?
It's an executive board meeting this the weekend in San Diego, and there is going to be a panel on election integrity on Saturday night. And I did mention to Carlos Montes my connection to the Secretary of State's office, who got the situation or reported the situation resolved with Brandy Orth. I told him I will be speaking on this, and how is this the way it will be as of Saturday night, that we don't know how Brandy Orth was made to comply, and we don't know who to complain to when we find our registrars are not in compliance. In 2006, Tom Corbett found his registrar not in compliance in Riverside, and was told that the secretary, even Deborah Bowen, had no leverage to do anything. It had to go to the Attorney General. The Attorney General had no leverage to do anything. Tom had to do a lawsuit, and I forget the details of that case. But in other words, this is a long, ongoing thing. But since Alex Padilla is so proud of himself as such a good Secretary of State, I think it's time that we say the buck stops there, and we want you to publish what is the chain of command for getting compliance from the counties with California election code.
And that's happening on Saturday, is that what you said?
Saturday night, yep.
Okay, now, here was what I was about to say. I put this picture up again. It's not a very good picture of this. The video that I took of the Pinellas County, Florida, was better. When they do a review of any kind of the election, it isn't just the registrar of voters that makes a decision. They have a judge, 2 backup judges, about 5 or 6 other people around the table, and they review everything. It's not just one appointed official like Michael Vu. That's ridiculous. And we've got to somehow, this is a big difference that I've seen in just the structure of it. John, you have a whole election integrity commission. Is that what you've got there? I mean, that's a pretty good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Pima County Election Integrity Commission, even though it's manipulated and controlled, but there are very good people on there that are fighting back with us.
So we don't have these mechanisms in California to spread out the decision making at the county level amongst some other people instead of just these appointed folks, and then also letting the public have more input by having these commissions that can take part in it.
Well, we do in LA County have a community voter outreach committee, and you can look that up. We do have that mechanism. It doesn't have any democracy, decision making, but it is an advisory capacity. It's a redress of grievances forum. It's an exchange forum. It's pretty good in that sense. I still think that what's wrong is that every county registrar does not have oversight from above, legal enforcement to say, I'm going to make you follow the law.
Yeah, I don't think the Secretary of State, this is just my hunch about it, I don't think that they have any real enforcement capability over these folks except for just certifying the equipment they use, this sort of thing.
Well, then somebody got Brandy Orth to change her ways, and it was very hidden. What I'm uncomfortable with is this is our election mechanism, and there is no legal chain of command. That's crazy. I know on the county it's nice to have a committee and election assistants, but again, they don't have the force of law for their registrar county by county, I don't think. The Secretary of State is the chief elections officer of any state. So there's got to be some kind of command.
Well, they've done very little. I mean, it says in the law, like a random, using that random number generator or something that the Secretary of State specifies. They don't ever specify anything. They've done basically nothing to help these counties comply with standards. I look over at Arizona, I'm really impressed that their Secretary of State has very specific guidelines.
We help write it. That's what the commission comes in. We have the Secretary of State's procedures manual that's updated every 2 years, and it is really it makes everything. I can go from one county to another county, and I can walk in what I call my Bible, my procedures manual.
Yes.
And I use the procedures against them because they don't follow the manual.
Right.
And that gives you.
But we just passed John, we don't have that, and we just passed a law, and all it says vaguely is the Secretary of State shall set procedures and regulations. And that's all. We don't know what they are. That's why the secretary needs to go to Padilla.
Yeah, and I can see it's a nightmare in California because when I did my long audit over there of 5 weeks on the whole state, that's what I was looking for, was procedure manuals. And Ray was the only one who gave me anything in PDF files. and I went to county, and it was like everything was just twisted a little different. No standard.
Yeah, we got the one from Sacramento, and they couldn't provide a digital version because it's basically handwritten on top of another procedure. That's what they're using.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hokey, it's ridiculous. Well, I'll tell you what, we've gone on for enough time now to kind of have our way clear. I think for tomorrow here in Florida, what we're going to be doing, and then later next week is going to be the second half of this. If they're actually going through the audit, they're going to do the selection meeting tomorrow. I'm going to be, it looks like, in Palm Beach County trying to observe that one. And then I'm going to stay here, and so I can see what they're doing in the actual audit process. That was my plan anyway. And then when I get back, I'm going to go up to LA and see what they're doing in their audit process and try to follow everything up there. Sacramento, we're going to be putting in a complaint and asking them to change from their non-random and redoing it with random. I think actually she's already certified her results, so she's going to say I can't go back. But we can at least, make sure that it's documented and then take her to task for it the best that we can.
Yeah.
And then Fresno, that's the one where we really need to find out what happened there so that we can stop this from occurring in the future. And maybe I still think it may be still worthwhile to, even though they redid it, to somehow, because we're talking about in Sacramento about how the random selection is done. If we actually do bring that to a head and it becomes some sort of a lawsuit, then we can maybe make sure that it includes the fact that they have to do it after the election. The results are final.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in the middle of everything here. I'm hoping that, here's the thing is in Florida, this state is really, really close. You know what happened? You watched the election night results. The media said, Florida off the table. It's already settled. Trump won that one, right? And yeah, it's almost within a 1% here. I mean, it's so very close. It's only 114,000 out of 9 million votes. It was very premature for the media to call Florida that fast when they hadn't even gotten them settled yet. So that's what makes me worried about that whole thing there. But I do think that that Trump did win it, at least from the Electoral College standpoint. And because as I was watching the ballots come in, there's a lot of movement here toward Trump. Even a lot of Democrats who formerly voted for Obama decided that they haven't had enough of it and they were going to try somebody else.
I think all these election forensics are best talked about and thought about. I mean, my true intention at this point with any forensics is to get the dirt out now, because everybody talked about rigging, including the guy who won. So we're all agreed. These are riggable. So let's go look.
That's exactly right.
All the right to know laws we've got.
Okay, so I still want to try to ask the question of John here. The guy in Pinellas County in Florida wants to raise the money and pay for them to rescan the ballots and create ballot images so that he can look them over. What do you think about that idea?
Well, it's a very fast scanner. It does, 7,000 ballots per hour. And I don't know how big of a county it is, but, why not?
It's about.
I would say this, is that I would argue first that they destroyed evidence and they need to restore it because they broke the chain of custody in the ballot holdings, okay? And that switch was not put there to save ballot images. It was put there to destroy, okay? And they broke the chain, and I'd argue that. By federal law, you have to save everything for 22 months, even the envelopes that they were mailed in.
Okay, so I think it's going to be better for us. I think it sets a bad precedent for us to be paying for them to redo the ballot images. I think we should go for the route that you're suggesting now that I understand it better. So I'm going to suggest that to him instead of the other approach. We have some. That's Mike Fox, who has helped with the PDA people here, organizing and getting some volunteers lined up. Okay.
I got a whole file of information, how the complaints work, and of course, Bill Reisner or myself would be glad to brief him and let him know. Of course, they have to apply their own state laws to it. Of course.
Well, we want to. I was talking to this guy. Maybe you know this guy named Peter Pekarski.
Yeah, I know Peter real well. In fact, I told him to call you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's a good point. You did. And his suggestion was for us to go ahead and ask for the ballot images from every of our targeted counties.
Absolutely.
850. So that's one thing I want to try to do.
And the DS200s and the Dominions, okay? Because you got those there too in Florida. You'd be surprised. Maybe 70% of the vote in Florida was ballot imaged.
Yeah, okay. So that is going to be, I'm going to have some time this weekend to catch up here because I'm isolated in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm going to be trying to catch up, and I will be working on those requests when I'm here. Okay, it's cool.
Great.
So it's now 10:19. We've been on for an hour and 20 minutes, except for the screw up that I did. So thank you, everybody. Let's adjourn the meeting. Let's proceed with our oversight big day tomorrow in Florida, and then the follow-up next week to watch the audit process itself, and then going back to the other areas as we can. Other parts of the country, we tried to get Diane Fowler, who I thought was calling in here in Michigan. We determined that there are no audits being done in Michigan at this time, even though they do have paper ballots. They have audits being done, but not of the ballots. They audit the other process, which is actually kind of a cool thing what they're doing, but they're not auditing the actual ballot count, the vote count at all. And so we didn't have anything there. And the people in Pennsylvania, I think we just didn't have time to really get them going in other areas either. New Jersey, they don't have any paper. Virginia doesn't have any. It's against the law to do audits there. So there's a whole bunch. I mean, a lot of this country here is so far out of whack. They don't have any pay. There's nothing to audit. And the other parts,
they have ballot images, but they might have ballot images.
They might, but a lot of them are just the DRE machines with nothing, though, Mimi. They don't
even DREs have ballot
yeah, they do.
images.
They're not as good as paper, but they do. Yeah.
They have, not a touch screen, though, right? They have to produce the ballot. Is that what you're saying?
It's a screenshot.
Even the touch
ballot.
Oh, a screenshot.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good enough. Well, have a lot to do. So thanks, everybody. We'll adjourn the meeting. Appreciate it.
And just one other thing.
Thank you.
Okay, what, John? What's the last thing?
Is that Brad Freeman had an exceptional show tonight. John Simon was on it. A lot of facts were debunked in this election. It's a good show to really get an update what's going on right now as of today in the election fraud investigation across the country.
Oh, okay, good. I'll check that out. I tend to keep track of what he's doing. Okay, thanks a lot, John. All right, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Sally.